Welcome back for another board game review, everyone. This time around we're going to be hitting the high iron, and we're going to take a look at the Lionel train game, Double Crossing. The game came out in 1988, and it's kind of popular at the time. It seems to have kind of faded into history since then, but basically it's similar to Monopoly, only it's of course dealing with trains instead of buying properties and houses and hotels and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and dig in, and we will take a look at all the components of the game and see how it's played. So as we open up the box, we have the pamphlet of instructions that come with the game. And then we have the game board itself. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on everything that's involved here. And then we also have all the game pieces and playing cards. We have the crew cards and other cards that are used to determine how the game is played or how you play your turn. And then we have all of the contracts that you collect as you go around the board. And then we have all of the cash that you earn as you trade in your rolling stock for contracts on the board. 2 dice. And then we have all of the game pieces. We have gray tank cars, blue coal hoppers, yellow box cars, and green passenger cars. In addition to that, you have the 6 locomotives that each you can play up to anywhere from 2 to 6 players for this game. Each player has a different color locomotive that they use to travel around the board. And another one in here somewhere. There it is. And then each locomotive also has color-coordinated section of track, and this is where you put your cars that you purchase as you go around the board. So to set up the game, you put all 6 of each cars on their color-coordinated yard spaces. All the green passenger cars go in the yard space over here for the passenger cars, yellow for the box cars, blue for the coal hoppers, and gray for the tank cars. There's 6 cars each, although my game came with a 7th tank car, although that doesn't affect gameplay at all. The crew cards, as these are called, they are shuffled and divided between the 2 crew card spaces. And generally, when you play the game, don't really have the space for it here, but you put the contracts out along the edge of the board where that match up with the company. So like this here is the Rancid Recycle Corporation, so that would go here for the for that company, like that basically. Disadvantage of that is the contracts are out at the edge of the board where anybody can grab them if they're on that side of the board. So you have to kind of watch if you have anyone likes to cheat during these games, like my little brother. Then on the depot section on this corner, you put a $100,000 bill in there, and then any taxes and fees and stuff get added to that. Basically, if you do the free parking on Monopoly and you have put all the taxes and stuff in the center, and whoever lands the free parking gets that money. That's basically what that is there. And then each player gets 2 free train cars. So you roll both of the dice, and then there's a section, it's actually over here in where it's called Train Shop. Use that as a guide for determining what cars you get for free. If you roll a 1, you get a passenger car. 2 and 3 are box cars. 4 and 5 are hopper cars, and 6 is tank cars. So here I got a 2, which is a box car, and I also got a 6, which is a tank car. So each holder holds up to 6 cars. To start the game then, everyone starts on the Grand Central Station here in this corner. You roll to see who gets the highest score, and then basically you go clockwise around the board. As you go around the center loop here, when you land on one of these spaces for each of the yards, you can buy the train cars that are on those space in that yard there for those 2 spaces. There's also on the inner loop, there's 4 spaces for taxis, 1 for boxcars, 1 for covered hoppers, 1 for tank cars, 1 for passenger cars. And of course those taxis go over here onto the depot section. And then there's also roll against spaces on the center. 2 of them are for roll again with 2 dice. One's roll again with 1 dice, or 2 of them are roll again with 1 dice. So then, as you collect your cars, after you've purchased enough cars to go out and get contracts, you basically exit the inner loop and go out to the outer loop. And basically you go around and you land on one of the companies on the outer loop. If there's contracts there, you have a car, like say here, Jocko Sporting Goods. It's a yellow space, so if you have a yellow box car, you can trade that in, get a contract, and get the cash for that contract as well. So like I have 2, like in this case, I have 2 box cars. I would get 2 contracts for that space, as well as the money for the box cars. Or what you then do is go around, come back into the inner loop. You can get more train cars and go back out and get more contracts and more money. And basically the way the game is played, the first person to get 6 contracts and get back to Grand Central Station wins the game. Sounds simple enough, but there are some spaces where you can end up losing your contracts or freight cars and basically get your whole plan sabotaged by your opponents and by just bad luck on the game. So in addition to playing the game, or going around getting the contracts, you also get crew cards at the beginning of the game as well. And then of course anytime you land on these spaces, on these 2 corners here, you get to take a crew card as well. These basically help change up how you play the game, because basically when you roll the dice, you have to roll both dice for each of your turns. There's engineer cards, which allow you to roll again. And there's also railroad crew cards, which allow you to either move forward slow with 1 dice or move in reverse with at full speed with 2 dice. And if you have 2 cards, you can move in reverse with 1 dice. There is also a villain card, which you play that on any of your opponents, and they have to choose one of their train cars to put on the space that they are at on the board. So like say I'm here and someone decides to play the villain card on me. Only card there, or card available, is the tank car, so that gets left there. And the next player that lands on that space can then pick up that car for free. If you have the villain card, you can play that on any opponent, and basically they pick one of their train cars that they have on their section of track, and they have to leave that on that space. They cannot pick it up again themselves. It has to be left there. Then the next opponent that lands on that space gets to pick up that car for free. Then, if you're about to play your turn, one of your opponents can play one of these stop cars, or cards, and then basically each player rolls one dice. The highest roll prevails. So if you're playing this stop card and you win the dice roll, your opponent cannot take their turn. This basically causes your opponent to lose their turn. Some of the rules that go along with the game, if you roll doubles, you lose a crew card to the discard pile, and then you move the number of spaces rolled. If you have no crew cards, you simply just move your locomotive the number of spaces that you rolled. If you do roll double sixes, it's called rolling for boxcars, and if there's a boxcar available, you get a free boxcar as well as getting to move 12 spaces. So then if you're moving along and you happen to land on an opponent, you follow the instructions on that space if there are any. You can buy whatever contracts that are there, and then you get a new turn, and you can use your crew cards if you want to, and then roll the dice and keep moving along. If you land on one of the spaces that has a derailed car, you can pick that up for free, like I said earlier. Also, you can only have, as I said, these tracks sections can only hold 6 cars at a time. You can't hold any more cars than that. Once you get 6 cars, basically you go out and on the outside loop and start collecting contracts and money. Then the cars get returned into the 4 yards in the center loop, and then once you're ready, you can go back in, buy more cars, and then go out for more contracts. During gameplay, if you do not have enough money to pay your taxes or passenger car fees, you basically have to sell a car or contract back to the board. That way then you get the money for the car or contract, and then you use that for paying your fees. Then if you sell a contract, the contract then goes back to wherever property or customer it came from. And then when you sell cars or contracts, you can only redeem them at half of their value. So $300,000 boxcar, you only get $150,000, and so on. And then as I said before, all taxes then go into the depot space here on this corner. And then, of course, once you get back to the Grand Central Station, if you have 6 contracts, you win the game. There are some special spaces on the board. All 4 of the all 4 of the corners on the outside loop are the station spaces. If you land on a station space, you collect fees for any passenger cars that you have. So if you have 1 passenger car, you collect $50,000 from every player on the board. If you have 2 passenger cars, you collect $100,000 from each player, and so on. And then, while on the station space, and this part's actually optional, you can roll 1 dice to see how many crew cards you can buy. You can buy anywhere from 1 to 6 crew cards at $100,000 each. That's optional. You don't really have to buy them, but you can just get them when you land on the center, on the 2 spaces on the center loop. But you can also buy them from the station spaces too. And over here in this space here is a derail space. If you land on the derail space and there's no car already on it, you then have to place one of your cars on that space. And basically it works just like the derail cars, or derail crew cards, where you lose a card there, and then the next person that lands on that space picks up that car for free. That player that lands on that space, if there's a car already there, they do not have to discard one of their cars. they keep all their cars and then pick up this one for free. That is if there's space on their track. If there's no space on the track, you can't pick up a derailed car. Over here on this side, there is the double cross space, where if you land on that space, you can take a contract from any opponent and place it on the board. Both players then roll one dice. If the player that is on the double cross space wins, he takes the contract. If he loses, his opponent keeps the contract. When the two players tie for the roll, they must roll again. So that's one place where you can steal a contract from an opponent and possibly win better your chances at winning the game. There's also a roundhouse space here, where if you land on that space, you have 3 tries to roll doubles. If you roll doubles, you can move your locomotive to any space on the board and follow the instructions on the space, or buy contracts or whatever. So say you've got 10 cars and you want to buy from, say here, the Sweet Smell Perfume Company, but you don't want to waste time getting over there. So if you land on the roundhouse space and you roll doubles on one of your 3 tries, you can move your locomotive over here, get contracts from there if there's any available, and better your chances at winning contracts and winning the game. Over on this side, there is a control tower space, where if you land on that, you can choose an opponent and place that player's locomotive anywhere on the board, and then that opponent has to follow the directions on the space. So say I land over here on the control tower, and I can pick an opponent, put them over here on the derail space, and then they would lose one of their train cars to the board. It's one of the ways you can sabotage your opponents, basically. Also on this side is a dissatisfied customer space. If you land on that space, you have 3 tries to roll doubles. If you do not roll doubles in 3 tries, you lose one of your contracts back to the board. If you do roll doubles, your turn ends, and you don't have to worry about losing any contracts. If you don't have any contracts, your turn ends anyway, since obviously you can't lose anything if you don't have any contracts. And you also cannot use your engineer card to roll again. Then over here on this side is the connections space, where if you land on that space, you can buy any contract from the board at half price. And then of course on the outside of the board too, there are 2 spaces for roll again with 1 dice, roll again with 2 dice, and there are also 2 stop turn ends spaces where you lose. Basically, if you land on that, you can't roll again, you can't do anything else on your turn. Basically your turn ends. So there's also, as I said, around the board is the contracts and the customers that you're trading your cars in for contracts and money. There's on each side there's one for tank cars, one for coal hoppers, and one for box cars. So basically there's for each type of car there's a customer on each side of the board. Alright, so that's the board game Double Crossing from Lionel. It's pretty, like I said, it's similar to Monopoly. It's like a railroad version of Monopoly. Has a lot of interesting twists and turns that can change up gameplay and change how you think you're going to win the game, and obviously might get your plans derailed, quote unquote. But it's a fun game to play. There's a couple options you can use to change up how the game played, depending on if time's a factor or not. One is that I came up with is basically rather than stop at 6 contracts, just keep going around the board. You buy all the contracts you can get, and then once you know, all the contracts are purchased, you know, head into to the Grand Central Station, and you know, whoever has the most contracts wins the game. Basically, you don't want to. You could keep going, you know, until you get to the Grand Central Station, because you know, obviously on your way there, you know, one of your opponents could steal one of your contracts or basically derail your plans to win the game. Another option too is, you know, when you get to return to Grand Central Station, just keep a running tally of how many contracts you've gained from playing the game, and you know, just keep going around and keep a running tally of how many contracts you've picked up. You know, come back in here, you know, turn in the contracts at Grand Central Station, and then take the money that you had when you got the contracts, get more train cars, go back out, get more contracts, and you know, like I said, just keep a running tally going and play until time runs out, or you know, it's time to give up the game and see who has collected the most contracts. So, but it's Double Crossing. It's a fun game, fun for the whole family, friends, anyone else who wants to play. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on another board game review. Take it easy. Welcome back, everyone, for another board game review. This time we're hitting. Welcome back, everyone, for another board game review. This time we're hitting the high iron, and we're going to take a look at the Lionel train game, Double Crossing. It's similar to welcome back to